Samia, blessed Sabbath, saints. We meet again in our discussions on live discussions in the Bible, Spirit of Prophecy, for us to prepare the way for the kingdom. We have to study, we have to search, we have to understand the will of God so that we are better prepared for the soon coming kingdom. Part of my topic today on a Sabbath is we have to pry into how we actually really fell. Some of us were not even born. Most of us in this generation, don't tell me you were born in 1844. Otherwise, you could be one of the miracles of the day. But this happened when all of us were not yet born. So we have to search. All the scripture has been left for us to search and understand. As we are doing searching from the Bible, from Jeremiah, from Isaiah, we are finding and prying what was happening in the time of Adam, in the time of Abraham, in the time of Job, in the time of Martin Luther, in the time of William Miller, in the time. So without checking into our history, how we came about, we will not understand the truth. We need to understand the truth by checking and reading the past, and so that we understand where we are going, from where we came from, so that we are not people who just come in without knowledge and do it wrongly. And because we know in the past things have happened, errors have been introduced, some have been taken off, some people went into dark ages. Without us learning about the past, we will not understand all those things. We will not know what actually was changed. How are we supposed to respond? So we meet again to study, especially the fall which occurred in 1888. We did fall. People enjoy saying it was rejected, message was rejected, but it's a fall. You should know it's not only rejection, it is falling, because churches previously to that had rejected a heaven-sent message and they fell. So we also fell in 1888, but we want to understand how was that fall, who caused it, what happened. Without us understanding that, we will only continue with things that were introduced in error. So we have to go back together and search from the history, the Spirit of Prophecy. The Bible has it all of that. We will never be, excused by God for not reading the past. God wants us to read. That's why those things were left for us to understand, so that we know how to conduct ourselves in the time future to us, so that we make our calling and election sure, and we are candidates of the kingdom. So we have to study today. Before we go into our study of how we fell, let's have a quote from 1T, or Testimonies for the Church, Volume 1, page 189, second paragraph. Let us read from that.
Many I saw were flattering themselves that they were good Christians, who have not a single ray of light from Jesus.
Right. Do you know, it's so fearful to hear that we could go on and on and on flattering ourselves that we are good Christians, and yet there is not even a single ray of light that we have understood or that we have found out from the scriptures. So that's why we have to meet and discuss and pry and really understand what was happening, what had God wanted us to do, so that we are found not wanting. So read on, let's hear.
They know not what it is to be renewed by the grace of God.
Right?
They have no living experience for themselves in the things of God. And I saw that the Lord was whetting his sword in heaven to cut them down.
Right?
Oh, that every lukewarm professor could realize the clean work that God is about to make among his professed people. Dear friends, do not deceive yourselves concerning your condition. You cannot deceive God. Says the true witness, I know thy works.
Right.
The third angel is leading up a people step by step, higher and higher. At every step they will be tested.
Right. So this we have been told that we are being led higher and higher, and in each step we will be tested. We saw even 3 steps from Sister White, that there were 3 steps from her, next the step from Brother Hotef, next from Brother Ben Roden. Each step has a test, and we see people being tested in different steps. So like it was those who were accepting William Miller's message, they were tested. Some of them refused even to progress with Sister White. They were tested. And those also with Sister White will also be tested. Some will refuse to go into the road, which is the next step. And also those in the road will be tested. Some refuse to go into the last stage for Ben Roden, which was the branch. So we will get tested in every step as we progress higher and higher. But today my lesson is, let's pry into the previous. For there was a fall there. If we do not understand that fall, we might get it wrong. We should understand what happened in 1888. Who caused that fall? What was happening? And how is it affecting us now? So we have to go back to, let's go to manuscript 76, 1901. So some of them who can't get the manuscript, you can go to Pastoral PM, which is Pastoral Ministry, 356.2. So let's read from there. We see, as we are growing up, we have books of prophecy amongst us. And one of the books of prophecy was written by a famous writer called Uriah Smith, who wrote a book, Daniel and Revelation, and so let's hear from Spirit of Prophecy about this famous writer. When this famous writer was writing, what does also the Spirit of Prophecy say? We see initially this famous writer was being applauded, right? I might think it was before the fall. Let us read from 4 special books.
4 special books. Daniel and Revelation, Great Controversy, Patriots and Prophets, and Desire of Ages should now go to the world.
Right. This is what they advocated. These books, let them go to the world. We had a book, Revelation, Daniel, Great Controversy, Patriots and Prophets. All these, Desire of Ages, these are very famous books. They were advocated by our brethren. Let them go to the world, right? Which is good. Let these books go to the world. Right, let's read on.
The grand instruction contained in Daniel and Revelation has been eagerly perused by many in Australia.
Right. So even in Australia, some went and perused these books because they were allowed by God to be sent throughout the world. Yeah.
This book has been the means of bringing many precious souls to a knowledge of the truth.
This is how we understood the knowledge of truth. These books were circulated like leaves of autumn, right?
Everything that can be done should be done to circulate thoughts on Daniel and Revelation.
Even the famous thoughts on Daniel and Revelation was commanded to be circulated. Everything that can be done should be done to circulate this book. You see, it was being circulated, right?
I know of no other book that can take the place of this one.
And Sister White was saying, I know of no other book which can take the place of Daniel and thoughts of Daniel. You know, when I was born, this book, I loved it. I saw it on my father's table all the time, my father reading from this book. And it was inspiring. And Sister White was saying, I know There is no other book that surpasses this one. Thoughts on Daniel, right? Mm-hmm.
It is God's helping hand.
Right. This is what Sister White advised about that book. That book was God's helping hand. That's why it was so famous. It was commanded by God to be circulated through Sister White. You understand? So we have to start and see exactly how we were so powerful at that time because these books were being circulated. Yeah? Acts of the Apostle, Desire of Ages, Great Controversy, Thoughts on Daniel and Revelation. All those books, they were there. You could see the cover had a statue, you know, the one that was dreamed by Nebuchadnezzar. You know, you would start with seeing that statue and it will inspire you to peruse and what, because it had been inspired to be circulated, right? Now, as we read to go into the diary entry on 1901, you see, we are in 1888. We have been reading what was happening, and then now we are going to a diary entry on 1901, and we got to Great Controversy 691. Okay. Right? Oh no. Is it where
20?
I don't know where you are getting the 20s, but let me say diary entry of Great Controversy 691.2. Start where it's saying former calculations. Mm-hmm.
Former calculations of the prophetic period extended to the fall of the Ottoman Empire.
It was there in that book, in the books of Thoughts on Daniel. Yeah? So former calculations of this is what they are now revising. It was an edition. See, this edition is on diary entry 1901. It says former calculations of the prophetic period extending to the fall of the Ottoman Empire, right? Read on.
Was published in 1841.
Right.
And an article in Signs of the Times and Expositor of Prophecy, August 1, 1840. See also article in the Signs of the Times and Expositor of Prophecy, February 1, 1841. And J.N. Loughborough, The Great Second Advent Movement in 1905. The book by Uriah Smith, The Thoughts of Daniel and Revelation of 1944, discusses the prophetic timing of this prophecy
on pages
506 to 517.
Right. So you see, that's where we get in Great Controversy 691.2 is directing us where he's talking about the fall of the Ottoman Empire, and it's there in the thoughts of Daniel and Revelation. So we are studying, isn't it? Now, so there were several editions were done from that book. Yeah? So go again, 691.2, former calculations of the prophetic period. You have read it, right? Let's go now to the 1882. So that one was 1841, right? Now, 1882, there is a what I call a real first edition in the pastoral ministry. 1882, you can go to pastoral ministry, page 653, first paragraph. It says in 1882.
Okay. In 18 he sailed. In 1882, he sailed. He sallied forth with 50 new and attractive copies of Uriah Smith's Thoughts on Daniel and of Revelation.
So there were still new editions, new attractive copies being manufactured. That was in 1882, right?
And sold, every one of them.
Right? And these ones were sold, right? Read on. Now, in 1888, why do we love this year? Because that's where those two guys were raised, Jones and Wagona, in 1888. So in 1888, Sister White then, we see her coming in to say, discard the books. Right? You see, all along, they have been enjoying those books. But now she comes with another certain sound and say, can you discard the books? Right? We want to find out why now she was saying, discard those books. When we were enjoying them, we were enjoying thoughts on Daniel and Revelation, and several editions had been done from 1841, 1882. These were being circulated, sold everywhere. But we see a statement now, Sister White in 1888. She's now advising the books to be discarded. What a bet. So meaning, there could be some who discarded at that time when she said it. And there could be some continuing with them until today. So we want to see why then they were being discarded. 1888, if you go online, you find it was on 1888, 34, page 34.6. Let's read that statement from there, right?
In 1888, Sister White advised all these books to be discarded.
And
then, when that objectionable article came out, even if it did come out while Elder Uriah Smith was not present, who of you laid this matter open before him?
Right. There was an objectionable article which had come out, but that objectionable it came out when Uriah Smith wasn't present. So it means something had been presented. There was an article which was objectionable, or which had some questions from the prophet who was there. So the prophet, Sister White, had some objections to that article, and then is asking the brethren, who of you was there even when Uriah Smith wasn't there when it was presented, but who of you laid this matter open before Uriah Smith? So Uriah Smith was supposed to be told about that objectionable article because it was produced when he was not there. Who of you? Now, let's see. It seems in point 3, what is it? It seems, what is it?
It seems I had to write him and speak plainly on this point.
So she's saying, in actual fact, you didn't tell him, but I had to tell Uriah Smith when this article came. You, brethren, you did not tell Uriah Smith, who was out. That was a writer at the time then present. But nobody warned him about this objectionable article. So Sister White is saying, it seems I am the one who had to write to Uriah Smith about this article. Right, read on.
And he has used every check put on him by myself as a cause to throw himself.
Right? So it seems I had to write him and speak plainly on this point, on the point of that article. And he has used every check put on him by myself as a cause to throw himself. Now, it's with Uriah Smith now. It's on point 4, that 34.4, right? Or 4th paragraph, that's what it means, point 4. I think
if you had done your duty,
right,
I should not have been called upon to write to him.
Right. If the brethren who were there, who had seen that article, had done their duty to inform Uriah Smith, who was a writer, Sister White would not have been bothered to write to Uriah Smith. But what was it all about? We are so curious to see what was that all about. Right? Read on.
I have been shown and have told him that he was a loose writer.
Right. The person who wrote this article, Sister White said, I have been shown, meaning it's God who showed Sister White that this person is a loose writer. When you are a loose writer, it means you are not picking inspired from inspired interpreters. You are putting private interpretations. So you are a loose writer. So it means you are not sticking to the spiritual SOP interpretation, but you are also combining private interpretation. That's a loose writer. Now here, Sister White says this article was coming from a loose writer. So you should have told Uriah Smith that he is getting this article from a loose writer. Now, Sister White is saying this person was a loose writer, and then what has happened to Uriah Smith? He had taken the point from a loose writer. Let's put it in brackets there, right? It's our duty to study, right? Read on.
I have been shown and have told him that he was a loose writer,
right?
That he was ever seeking to be original,
right?
And that he gave assertion for proof that he did not live and walk with God so that he could be a safe writer.
Now, even this person had not shown proof that he is to be depended upon as pertaining his life. That's why I say, you shall know them by their fruit. So Sister White is disputing that those things which were in that article were coming from a loose writer, and the person who has not even recommended to take things from. Right, let's read. This one is on point 5, yeah? Right, I advised 1888.6, right? What then, after seeing that Uriah Smith was taking from this loose writer what he was writing, so what did Sister White do, right?
I advised his books to be suppressed,
right?
Especially the one on the law,
right?
The very subject he was conversing with you in regard to.
Right. This Sister White is saying this person was conversing with Uriah Smith, especially the subject on the law. Do you remember what A.T. Jones and Wagona were bringing as righteousness by faith? It was the law in Galatians chapter 4 verse 26. The schoolmaster, which they were saying the law should be together, the moral and the ceremonial law to be kept. Now, this loose writer was inspiring William Miller, especially Uriah Smith, especially the topic on the law. So, Sister White said, I advise these books to be suppressed. When she is saying suppressed, meaning stop circulating them. Suppress the books because some article has gone in them from a loose writer, especially on the point on the law. Right, listen, read on, right?
If that work is what I believe it to be, I would burn every copy in the fire before one should be given out to our people.
Now she's advising, if this is what has been added into these books, burn them. These are the books being written by Uriah Smith. Burn them before they are circulated to the people. Burn them. This is what we are reading, isn't it? Now let's read on. Go again to 3 BIO 34.4. So we will start with these BIOs. Start also on point 1 where it says,
Unfortunately, the discussion on the 10 kingdoms, whether the Huns or the Alemanni constituted one of the kingdoms, took on form of a debate and dragged over a period of several days.
Right, listen. Unfortunately, the discussion on the 10 kingdoms, whether the Huns, if you read in the prophets, you find they were writing about the Huns and the Alemanni constituted one of the kingdoms, took on the form of a debate. Now they to debate on the Huns and the Alemanni, and it took a lot of discussion. The debate was on those two, right? And it says constituted one of the kingdoms. This took on the form of a debate over a period of several days. It means for several days they were arguing over the hands and the alimony. Right? It is there in the prophets, if you read it. Right? And then what? It dragged over the several days. Then
Jones held for the alimony.
Right.
And
Listen.
Smith
Who is Jones? A.T. Jones was saying the right one is the alimony. Yeah? And what?
And Smith stood for the hands.
Do you see these two are arguing? A.T. Jones is saying it's the alimony. And what does Smith say? Is the hands. So one of them should be right. Do you understand? Who was arguing with A.T. Jones in 1888? Uriah Smith. Who was arguing against what A.T. Jones was presenting? Jones wanted the hand, the alimony. Uriah Smith wanted the hands. So we have seen these two are arguing. Right, read on.
As in his original list published in Thoughts of Daniel and Revelation.
These are in the original list published in Thoughts of Daniel and Revelation. Who published Thoughts on Daniel and Revelation? Uriah Smith. So Uriah Smith said, I will write hands. But John says, no, not hands, but alimony. Right, let's read on. But what does the book contain? What Uriah Smith wanted. Right?
Feelings ran high.
Now, these two now had feelings. We are reading from this from SOP. It's telling us the feelings ran high because these people are arguing. One is saying no, like somebody when we says okay, who is the beast? In someone says no, the beast is this one, and other one says the beast is that one. So these two argue, but one of them should be right. But the person who was on the opposite of Jones was Uriah Smith. And who wrote even in the Thoughts on Daniel. So what was in Thoughts on Daniel is what Uriah Smith wrote. Now it all depends. If he was wrong, then there's something wrong there. But if he was right, then there's something right. So we have to prove if they were arguing. But what we find now in Thoughts on Daniel is from Uriah Smith, who was arguing with A.T. Jones. Now let's see if that was right. Right, read on.
Feelings ran high. Cutting speeches
They
were
even
made.
exchange speeches, cutting. You're wrong, you go. God knows what speeches were there in that meeting. Right, read on.
Cutting speeches were made over a rather inconsequential matter. It polarized the group.
Right,
and
you see,
laid the
it was a group.
foundation.
You see, this was a group of people who are writing the books that we think we read, thinking we now have to find what God is saying to us. But look at what they were doing now. They were cutting speeches, arguing over that point, right?
It polarized the group and laid the foundation for bitter debate on subjects to follow,
Right?
particularly on the law
On
in
Galatians. Who was bringing the law on Galatians? A.T. Jones and Waggoner. Now, who is arguing against A.T. Jones and Waggoner? Is Uriah Smith. I mean, the topic of this discussion is saying, who caused the fall? Unless you find out, God will never be sanctioning your staying in ignorance. You will need to dig and find out if he has to be saved. You need to check for yourself. We have a fall in 1888. Who made the fall? Who was against these two guys? Because we are told an unwillingness was there at the Minneapolis meeting. There was but who was the sole ringleader to argue with these two? And who are we depending on as we are reading our prophecies? That's a very clear question. Repeat the last sentence there, right? Particularly.
It polarized the group and laid the foundation for bitter debate of subjects to follow, particularly on the law in Galatians and on justification by faith.
Right. Someone wrote me and said, you are saying A.T. Jones brought the ceremonial law, the feasts, and then I said they brought the book of Galatians, chapter 4, verse 26, and he says no, they didn't bring the book of Galatians. They brought righteousness by faith. But you know what? You should be knowing what was the theme verse. The theme verse was the book of Galatians. Particularly, this is the one that was bringing us into righteousness. What was it? The schoolmaster. This is what they were arguing about. This is what made us fail to attain the righteousness by faith by A.T. Jones and Wagona. We failed to take up the two laws that they were bringing, both the ceremonial and the moral, which was the schoolmaster. Because for us to run down, let's just go back to see exactly in Galatians chapter 4, verse 26. Because these guys, when they tried to bring the message, the person who was fighting them most, you can see for yourself as we are reading, was Uriah Smith. Now listen to what was their message? Yeah, Galatians 4 verse 26. 3 verse 26, yeah.
For ye are all the children of God by faith in Jesus Christ.
No, I want where it says the law was a schoolmaster. That's what I'm... 24.
Wherefore, the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ,
right,
that we might be justified by faith.
In verse 24, that's verse 24. This is the theme verse which was with A.T. Jones and Wagona. Now, when they brought this, they said this law which was a schoolmaster are the two laws, which is the moral law, the Ten Commandments, and the feast, which are the ceremonial law. They were bringing the feasts. Now let's go to book 1 of Selected Messages, 233, and see when now they argued. They went to Sister White, who was the prophet. Now that's why I'm saying, why did Sister White bring a statement to say discard the books? Because she saw that the people who had their heaven sent message were being opposed. And the very people who were opposing were writing the books that were going to be read by all these future generations. So she was now they're going to protect us by saying, discard the books. Now, read on book 1, Selected Messages, page 233. As they went to ask, is it both laws or what? So it means who was saying is one law, the moral law, is Uriah Smith. Who was saying is both is A.T. Jones, because these A.T. Jones and Wagon were saying is two, the moral and the ceremonial, while the brethren who were arguing with them were saying it's only the moral that we should keep, that should bring us into righteousness by faith. Now they went to ask Sister White about how many laws, is it one, the moral, or both the moral and ceremonial? Listen to the question.
Christ and the law.
Right.
I am asked concerning the law in Galatians.
Right.
What law is the schoolmaster to bring us to Christ?
Right.
I answer.
The answer.
Both the ceremonial and the moral code of the Ten Commandments.
Right. Now, we are trying to find out who caused the fall. Now, we see Sister White saying, particularly the books concerning the law, please discard, because there is an article which has been brought by a loose writer. So discard. So meaning she saw who was wrong. Yeah? And let's hear to 134. Page 234. Same book. Selected Messages. Okay. Yeah?
Point 6.
Yeah, point 6.
An unwillingness to yield up preconceived opinions and to accept this truth,
right,
lay at the foundation of a large share of the opposition manifested at Minneapolis,
right,
against the Lord's message through brethren E.J. Wagner and A.T. Jones.
So when they brought those two laws, these brethren refused. There was an unwillingness. All it meant was these guys were supposed to go back and reframe all the fundamental beliefs. That's what they were supposed to do. But there was an unwillingness to do that work. They were lazy to do that, and it all meant that A.T. Jones and we're going to have won. So it was a win-win game. You understand? It was a win-win. Someone wanted to win the argument by making sure the light which was coming from God is suppressed. Right? Read on.
By exciting that opposition, Satan succeeded in shutting away from our people in a great measure the special power of the Holy Spirit that God longed to impart to them.
God longed to impart to them these two laws so that they get the special power, empowerment of the Holy Spirit that we are yearning for. We want the letter and we want it, but then these guys brought it. And if they received that letter in, if they received that power on that time, the earth was only going to be ripped in 2 years. Christ was going to come. But listen, I'm just saying what the paragraph says next. Yeah.
The enemy prevented them from obtaining that efficiency which might have been theirs in carrying the truth to the world.
Right.
As the apostles proclaimed it after the day of Pentecost.
Right. So this is what was going to have a second Pentecost to us. But who stopped it? That's why we have to find out what happened in that 1888. Because all of us in this generation, none of us was born in that year. None of us. So how do we get the answer? We read the scriptures. We read. We do not throw a clock and say we don't want to find. We read because the scriptures are for you and me to be saved. We have to see what happened at the foundation. Why is it all like Sister White warned them and said this very message will be coming back again before Christ comes. And when it comes, it actually will be ridiculed. The devil also excite the brethren in the last minute to reject it, to scold it, to ridicule it, like they did to A.T. Jones and Wagwan. So let's go back to our topic, back where we were reading in 1888 message. Let's go back, yeah? So it says here, you see how tense it was when they were debating about the Alemanni and the Huns, and who won at that time? Uriah Smith, and went to endorse it in the Thoughts on Daniel and Revelation, right? The Spirit of Prophecy is telling us what was happening when they were writing. For I've had people come to me, Thoughts on Daniel and Revelation does not say so. Listen, there were loose writers coming to put their own opinions also. We have found out from there. Right, read on, right? This was on 3BIO 394 first paragraph. That's what we're reading. Particularly the one on the law of Galatians on justification by faith. This was the message from A.T. Jones and Wagona. And who was opposing them? Uriah Smith. Right? Perhaps.
Perhaps.
This was in 394.2. That's what we want to hear as we proceed. Perhaps.
At this juncture,
right,
we should pause for a description of the two younger men from the Pacific coast who were leading out in innovative presentations.
Now I want to see these younger men who were leading in these innovative presentations. Who are these? Who were where Uriah Smith was taking ideas from? Who were these two? That's why I said let's pause and find out who are these two men. Now who are they? A.W. Spalding, right?
Who knew both, provides such a description.
Who was it? Who was feeding Uriah Smith? A.W. Spalding is the one that Sister White was talking about there, right? This was in 394.2, which is 3 BIO, right? Let's go to the next paragraph. Yeah, young Wagona. So you see, who was older? A.T. Jones and Wagona. A.T. Jones was older, and Wagona was young. Right? Listen, that's why Sister I says young Wagona, right?
Young Wagona was not even like his father, J.H. Wagner.
Right?
Tall and massive. He was short, stocky, somewhat different.
We are even told how he looked like, isn't it? Right?
Jones was a towering, angular man.
He was right.
With a loping gait and uncouth posturings and gestures.
Right.
Wagner was a product of the schools.
Right.
With a leonine head, well packed with learning and with a silver tongue. Jones was largely self-taught, a convert found as a private in the United States Army, who had studied day and night to amass a great store of historical and biblical knowledge.
So, this is why God inspired this guy. He was knowledgeable. He was reading history. He will not be moved by anyone without knowledge of the history. So, you cannot just embark on preaching and preaching without the history. This guy was loaded with history. So that's why God sent these two guys to give us the ceremonial law and the moral law. But listen, there was this Spalding and Uriah Smith. The presentation that they brought, which Sister White condemned and said this is a loose writer. Now, read on. Not only
was he naturally abrupt, but he cultivated singularity of speech and manner, early discovering that it was an asset with his audiences.
So he was very eloquent. You know, to those who preach, eloquence is number one. They want to be eloquent. And there are some people who are very eloquent but preach nothing. I've seen them. Very eloquent, they say this and that in charismatic way, but nothing inside. But this one was eloquent, at the same time he had read. So it was a very useful arm for God to use to present these messages. Right?
But these two caught the flame of the gospel together.
Right? And so this A.T. Jones and Wagner, they were united together. One was a historian, and now they are bringing this law on Galatians. For these two laws that were to bring us into Christ, that were supposed to be received in 1888. They were very eloquent. They were very, knowledgeable. Now they too made a very powerful arm of God in 1888. Right, read on.
But these two put the flame of the gospel together, and they went forth supplementing and reinforcing each other in the work of setting the church on fire.
Right, they set the church on fire. Now this one you find in Origin and History, 3 by BIO 394.4. That is the quotation. So let's hear from volume 2 MR manuscript release, page 55.1. We want to study from the scripture, from our own scripture, to find what happened before we were born. Now, why we are born, this is what the Bible is saying, and we don't even have it amongst us. What really happened?
I have been shown that as Uriah Smith, now stands, Satan has prepared his temptations to close about his soul.
Right?
That if he is not rescued, the banner of truth will not be held aloft by him.
Sister White now, in manuscript release, she says she was shown by God. So it's God now who was dealing with this Uriah Smith who were opposing the two guys. So Sister White, the way that Sister White came in to say, suppress the books, what had she been shown? That these two, I've been shown that as now stands, here in brackets, Uriah Smith, as he stands, Satan has prepared his temptations to close about his soul. That if he is not rescued, the banner of truth will not be held aloft by him. So God now wants to remove the banner of truth from Uriah Smith. Why? He was opposing A.T. Jones and Wagner. Right? We understand there? Now, let's hear again letter 20, 1890, or those who have second paragraph of 2MR 55, second paragraph. Let's read on. Elder Loughborough.
Elder Loughborough has stood firmly for the testimony.
That was a good person. We have seen who was good, who was right, who was wrong in the discussion. Loughborough has been recommended. He was a good. So this Sister White is being shown in a vision. Loughborough stood firmly for the testimonies. He stood saying, I want what is written, black and white, not from private interpretation. Right? Let's hear that.
The influence of Elder Loughborough is valuable in our churches.
Right. He was now receiving recommendation from the spirit of prophecy, from inspiration, that this is the man who is standing right in this discussion. Right?
Just such a man is needed. One who has stood unwaveringly for the light that God has given to his people.
Right?
While many have been changing their attitude toward this work of God.
Right. See, that group was so terrible because some were being seen changing, because there were two people fighting. Uriah Smith together with his Spalding fighting A.T. Jones and Wagon. But there was a neutral person who was there, was Loughborough, who was to be depended upon, would not swing, wanted to know from the testimonies, not see, when these two were arguing. So we are being told how these two men, Uriah Smith and Spalding, stood against the truth, with coming from A.T. Jones and Wagoner. We are being told by the scriptures. We were not there. We need the scriptures to tell us so that we know what is right. It's my right to know what happened. It is a right. I cannot just believe without a right to believe what is right. So I have to believe what is right from the scriptures. See what happened. For we see these books and then we say, can we depend upon them when this is what Sister White was writing? Right. Let's hear from the next quotation, because we are there in 1888. Go to 1888, just say 1888 space 1156 from the first paragraph, and then start where it says Uriah fought. That's what I want.
Oh, okay. Uriah fought A.T. Jones and Wagoner. I have written to Elder Uriah Smith.
Now, Sister wanted to write now to him, because she saw physically this man fighting the truth, fighting A.T. Jones Wagoner and A.T. Jones and Wagoner, who had been sent by God. She saw what happened. God gave Sister White a vision of who was fighting. And then now he says, I have written to Elder Uriah. Right, read.
I have written to Elder Uriah Smith words that I wish you could see.
Right.
The course which has been pursued toward Elder Jones has been an offense to God.
Right. See, Sister White is saying the course that Uriah Smith had done against A.T. Jones was offensive to God. So this man was offensive to cause the whole system to reject the 1888 message. Now Sister White is writing to him that what you have done is very offensive. Listen, read on.
When Elder Jones wrote his article in regard to the formation of the image of the beast,
right?
Elder Smith, without one word of communication to A.T. Jones, put it in the paper. Elder Jones was in the same city, and Elder Smith could have had access to him at any time to talk this matter over. But without saying a word, he published an article directly in opposition to Elder Jones's article.
Why was the devil doing that? Why did he cause the brethren to reject the 1888 message? So that the whole bus or the whole clan of Advent believers under Sister White goes to. We saw it we saw how these things, let's just come off from that. We saw in Revelation chapter 12. Let's go to Revelation chapter 12. We saw how this bus was tipped over. And you're telling me that this ship will never fall. This ship will never fall. Listen, this is what happened. That's why we say, from 1888 message, you will never see Sister White proclaim a statement to say the church is not Babylon. The only time she said it's not Babylon is before the fall. After the fall, because she saw what happened. That's why in Great Controversy, page 606, she says, thus the message will be proclaimed. And in amazement, they will hear that the church is Babylon. That is Great Controversy, page 606. But before that, before these two guys, the group which was with Uriah Smith and Spalding messed up everything so that we have no message from 1888. Nothing has come to us. Nothing. And when God now brings those messages of the ceremonial system back as for us to keep the feast in proper dates, then we are fighting again. Why? Because these guys, after fighting A.T. Jones and Wagoner, Uriah Smith went on to write even the Revelation chapter 13 on his own without even informing A.T. Jones. He wrote something against the truth. And what are we believing right now? What are we having right now? Now, let's see in Revelation chapter 12, when we saw come where the woman was given eagle's wings to fly into the wilderness, which is after persecution in Jerusalem, the headquarters of the church changed, and this is what is termed the woman who was given eagle's wings to fly into the wilderness. That's where the headquarters was introduced, was built up. Now all the people were fleeing persecution in Jerusalem when it started. After pagan laws were introduced there, they flee into America, where America was now discovered as a land not inhabited, and all the headquarters were installed in America for almost all churches there, so that there's worship according to your dictates of the conscience from there. Now, it is the woman flying into the wilderness. That's what is in that verse in Revelation 12, start from verse 6.
And the woman fled into the wilderness,
right,
where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,203 score days.
So it was this dark ages period, 1,260. Where was the woman fled into the wilderness? Established headquarters in America. That's where we have a headquarters until today. So now, when the woman fled into the wilderness, so that is fed for 1,260 days, not more than that. So if the woman stays there, the scripture says not more than 1,260. I don't know what is feeding the woman there. So go ahead.
Verse 7. And there was war in heaven.
Right.
Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels.
Right. So when Christ went back to heaven, there was war. That's the war. Before the cross, there was no war. The devil would go back to heaven and come back and willy-nilly. But after Christ was resurrected, there was no space for the devil anymore. Why? Because even the universe, the other angels who were left in heaven had seen how wrong the devil is, so he was banned completely. Right, read on.
And prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven.
Right.
And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil,
right,
and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world.
Right.
He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
So that's where we have now a complete ban of the devil. After the cross, he was banned. No more. But you remember before the cross, where he was going when people were assembled in a feast, and he knew that one planet did not send a representative, which was the earth. Other 11 planets had sent representative each. And when they are there, that's why in Job, God is asking, where are you coming from there? He said, from walking to and fro. So he thought he would represent the earth by going there. But he said, no, I've got myself a job And Job, who does not do any evil, he actually evades all evil. And then that's where all the discussion, you remember that discussion from Job. But our subject is that after the cross, he wouldn't go there again. That's why the scripture says him and his angels were cast out of heaven completely after the cross. Yeah? And
the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world.
Right?
He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
Right?
And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation,
right?
and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down,
Right?
which accused them before our God day and night.
Right?
And then they overcame him
Right.
by the blood of the Lamb.
So how was he cast? Because they overcame by the blood of Christ. So that's why I say after the cross, he was no longer allowed. Because the blood of Christ, his sacrifice, the universe, even those angels who did not actually know how wrong the devil was, saw him killing the Son of God. That blood of Christ made them say, yes, he is not right. So, read on.
And by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death.
Right?
Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and
Right.
the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath,
Right?
because he knoweth that he hath but a short time.
Right. Now, why I want this scripture, I want to see what Uriah Smith and Spalding and the company were doing to fight the message of God from A.T. Jones and Waggoner. We want to hear from this scripture, Revelation 12, what really happened when the woman fled into the wilderness. What then came? Right, read on from there.
Verse 13. And when the dragon
Right.
saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman
Right?
which brought forth the man-child.
Right. We knew that persecution started with the early Christian church first, and then later on, it also went to the Dark Ages period, and then let's hear what happened.
And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness,
Right.
into her place, where she is nourished for a time
And times and
half
divide.
a time.
So you see, the 1,260 years of the Dark Ages, that's when the woman was supposed to be nourished. After the persecution, the woman was supposed to go back. But I'm surprised the woman is still there. So it means the prophet was lost somewhere. The woman should be back to the headquarters. Metropolitan headquarters was in Jerusalem. That's where Paul and everyone went at the point where God had put his name. So that's where there was a headquarters. That's why in the last days we see the law coming out of Zion, meaning the headquarters, the woman should be back. Never mind, if those who want to stay there, they can continue staying there, but the woman will be back before Christ comes. Right, read on.
And the serpent
Right.
cast out of his
Now,
mouth.
I want you to listen carefully to that prophecy which he is about to read. This is exactly what Uriah Smith and Spalding did. It's chronicled in that prophecy. Now, what happened?
And the serpent cast out of his mouth
Right.
water as a flood after the woman.
When the woman fled into the wilderness, or made that headquarters, these pioneers, these brethren, were raised by the devil. We saw that in Selected Messages, volume 1, page 234, that there was an unwillingness to receive this message of both the ceremonial and the moral. From the brethren, there was an unwillingness. Now we know the culprits who were there, who were doing that, who were inspiring this unwillingness. We know those culprits. But Revelation 12 is saying, it's a serpent now casting water. Where? To the woman. What is water? If you go to Revelation chapter 17, verse 15, water. What is water? What is water?
And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest,
right,
where the war sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
Right. So let's go back to Revelation 12. So what is this water coming from the devil?
And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman.
To flood the woman. So when the woman went to the wilderness to establish headquarters there, what came? People who are not inspired by God, who are inspired by the devil, to make sure this woman loses all the truth. When 80 Jones and Wagona came, who fought them? Who fought them? Right. This water from Revelation chapter 12. This water. But fortunate, if you read further that verse, God had to help the woman. Listen what happened.
That he might cause her to be carried away of the flood.
Right?
And the earth helped the woman.
Now what helped the woman? The earth. You remember the Korahs and Datans? They were swallowed by the earth. Now we are being told that the woman is going to be helped by the earth as well. Do you understand? So like the tribe, those who were fighting Moses, these were fighting. They were fighting 80 Jones and Wagona, so that this truth does not come. But God, through Sister White, promised that the very truth will come back before he comes. So those who fight it at the end, we see in Ezekiel chapter 9, go through the city, smite. God commissions the angels to go and smite those who were doing the similar job, like what 80 Jones, what Spalding and Uriah Smith did to fight the message as it comes again with the ceremonial system and the moral law, like it was when it came with 80 Jones and Wagona. Now God now uses these angels. Now the earth is helping the woman get rid of all those who have no seal. Go in, smite all those who have no seal, come not near any. That is Ezekiel chapter 9. Verse 4. So go in the midst of Jerusalem. And to others say, follow. Those are the angels, like it was with the angels in Egypt. When they walked out of Egypt, the firstborns, they were all at the funeral to bury them, while the people of Israel were fleeing to the Red Sea. So this is the type. Now here we are seeing from Revelation 12, the earth war, we helped the woman. Finish that. Let's just enjoy that prophecy. Yeah?
And the earth helped the woman.
Right?
And the earth opened her mouth.
Right?
And swallowed up the flood.
Right?
Which the dragon cast out of his mouth.
Do you see? Where did the flood go? Where did those who oppose the truth go? It swallowed the woman, like it was with Korah and Datan. They were swallowed by the earth. And what happened?
And the dragon was wroth with the woman.
Now then, after that incident of swallowing this flood, that's where we find Revelation 12 verse 17. The dragon now wroth with the woman. So you see, the woman wasn't swallowed. The dragon was wroth. Read on.
And went to make war,
right,
with the remnant of her seed,
right,
which keep the commandments of God,
right,
and have the testimony of Jesus Christ.
Right. So the testimony of Jesus Christ, what is it? They have. So it means, like we did in previous studies, they have a prophet. So they keep the commandments, the law of Galatians, and the law. The woman is the remnant after that incident of swallowing of all those who were rejecting and who were doing the similar job like 80 Jones, like Uriah Smith and Spalding, swallowed. And then that's when we remain with what is called remnant. Don't call yourself remnant now. You're not remnant. You're still commingled. You know that you're church militant. You're not remnant. But the remnant is only when that incident has occurred. Then the woman remains with those who are under the leadership of the testimony, which is the prophet, and the commandments as it was with the two schoolmasters, both the moral and the ceremonial. Those are the ones that the woman is leading as a remnant after that incident of swallowing the flood there. So That's Revelation 12. It's just like a story. It's a two-sentence story if you read. If you are going to study all those scriptures, if Uriah Smith did not make it hard for people to study these prophets, if he did not mix about with these private thoughts from Spalding, the book of Revelation and Daniel actually can be read like two sentences. It's a sentence in Daniel and a sentence in Revelation. But look at how he came to bind about after making sure that A.T. Jones and Wagona, all they were coming with prophets. So he went to write his own prophets, and he didn't even consult A.T. Jones. We read that. Let's hear what else did he do. Let's read on. Sister White is writing a letter to him.
In 1888.
Right. Elder Jones was in the same city, so why didn't he consult him when he did not believe they were messengers sent by God? That's what he did.
We have had to meet this here in Australia.
No, start where it says, I have written to Elder Uriah Smith in 2 MR 55.3. Right? Have you found it?
Okay.
It is 1888 11 56.1. That long paragraph.
Okay.
Where it says Uriah fought A.T. Jones and Wagon.
Okay. I have written to Elder Uriah Smith words that I wish you could see. The course which has been pursued toward Elder Jones has been an offense to God. When Elder Jones wrote his article in regard to the formation of the image of the beast, Elder Smith, without one word of communication to A.T. Jones, put it in the paper.
So it means that corner there of the image of the beast, there's something wrong there. We have to find it before Christ comes, because he wrote it without consulting A.T. Jones, right? And then
Elder Jones was in the same city, and Elder Smith could have had access to him at any time to talk the matter over. But without saying a word, he published an article directly in opposition.
After rejecting the message,
Elder
you see
Jones.
how now they are binding about things. And read on.
We have had to meet this here in Australia. Souls are in temptation and darkness by reason of it.
And you see now where Sister White is operating from.
Australia.
It's no longer in America, it's in Australia. And if you want to know why she had to go there, it was this terrible resistance which was there, with these guys were doing. And when she was there, they didn't even pay her. She was now selling strawberries as a living. Right? And
souls are in temptation and darkness by reason of it. Our last conference in Melbourne did these tempted souls no good.
Right?
Why? One asks, should these two men conduct themselves in this way?
You see how they went ahead with the Melbourne conference? These two men now were a hindrance to the cause of God. Uriah Smith and Spalding. And read on. Yeah, we need, as we start, we just don't need love messages. We need to know the history. We need to know Rudo. We need the history to study it and understand, so that we are so sure of our election for the kingdom. And
why? One asks, should these two men conduct themselves in this way and present their dissensions to the world?
You see what they were doing now? Writing things without even approval from anyone, and now giving everyone was being flooded by these books. And this happened. That's why we have to study history and read on.
Unbelievers have taken advantage of it. Ministers not of our faith are handling the matter and making all the capital they can out of it. Why, with the Bible in our hands, should we depart so manifestly from its direct precepts.
You see, now they were now departing from the Bible. These two men, they were now making sure, and people were crying all over. These brethren, why are they conducting themselves? They are changing everything. They are departing from the Bible as well. Read.
Why should we play into Satan's hands?
We are now playing into Satan's hands.
And give him opportunity to triumph.
Right. This is from 1888 space 1156.1. This is what happened. If you are not worried about the history, so you go out, you go on and on, not knowing this, what I'm believing. Where has it come from? Was it inspired by God or what? So listen, go again there, point 2 on the next paragraph. We have
every evidence that the Lord is using Elder Jones,
right,
Elder
and
Wagoner,
and people had faith that Elder Jones and Wagoner are being used by God, but these two men were messing about. And why should we continue reading their books when they were messing everywhere and introducing things and putting everyone in the hands of the devil? Why should we? Why? Right? And
we have every evidence that the Lord is using Elder Jones, Elder Wagoner, Professor Prescott. And with this evidence before us, it pains my heart that any of my brothers in the faith should feel impatient and bitter toward them.
So you see, Uriah Smith and Spalding were now virtually enemies to the servants of God, making sure we all go astray, like it was the devil casting water to the woman. We saw it in Revelation chapter 12. And how did this devil cast water to the woman? We are seeing it right now. Let's read.
It pains my heart that any of my brothers in faith should feel impatient and bitter toward them.
So where did we get it wrong? Where did we get it wrong? From that point. Before that point, Sister Ward will tell you that the church will never be Babylon. But after that point, with these two brethren messing about, where did we go astray from that point? You know, when there are two roads and you take one road which is wrong, it means you have to go back to where you started from. So we have to go back where? To where Elder Jones and Wagoner were sent to give us the two laws. That's why it is coming in the last days, these two laws, the ceremonial law and the moral law coming. So it means God has taken us back to where we lost it out. And this time he's serious. Anyone who says yes, he's sealing. Anyone who says no, he is discarding. This is what he's doing. He's serious. We have to know where we are going. Someone has to take the courtesy to make us know the history. Someone else. Because when you go, you assemble. What are you doing? Powerful, we are powerful. We are powerful. We are the ones. We are the ones. We will never think. We will never think. But we want to know, how should we never think? How should we think? Right? And
refuse to draw in cords of love and unity with them.
Right?
Strife must cease.
So they were striving now against these two messengers of God. Right?
We must have unity. These representative men must respect one another and work in harmony. You have a most responsible position, and the Lord will greatly bless you if you walk in humility before him. But do not, my brother, expect every mind to be constituted like your own. Do not expect that your brethren will see everything in the same light and attach the same importance to some matters that you do.
I said, who caused the fall? That's my sentence, my topic. Who caused this terrible fall? When we find the Babylon is fallen, when we say, we didn't fall, but we fell. Rejecting is falling. And who caused that? Who caused that? When the message was coming by A.T. Jones and Wagon, who caused the fall? We should know. The scripture should give us. We are eager to know how we fell in the dark ages. And we even proclaim their names of those people, what pious, the whatever. But when we know about our own fall, we want to be so protective. God will not bless us when we throw a cloak to evil. We have to call a spade by his name. But the scriptures have been laid for us to read and share. Right. And what?
Do not expect that your brethren will see everything in the same light and attach the same importance to some matters that you do. For you will certainly be disappointed.
Right. And next chapter.
Next paragraph.
There is no need.
There is no need
This
of
one
contention.
is in 1157.1. Yeah. There is no need.
There is no need
of contention.
of contention.
You see, they were making contention with the messengers of God, which we believe had been sent by God with a message. Look at what they were doing, right?
There should be no evil thinking or evil speaking. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God.
If you are told that they were now evil speaking against each other, that was the world. Now, when we see God uttering statement that we have left Christ, the church has left Christ in 217, 5T, 217, left Christ, a leader, and steadily going back to Egypt. Like it was with the time. They wanted to leave Moses and go back to Egypt all the time. Did you see no graves in Egypt? When they didn't, then they saw anything wrong with Moses. They want to go back all the time. But God said, we had gone back. We have gone back. It says, yet few are alarmed. You understand? And here, read on where you left.
There is no need of contention. There should be no evil thinking or evil speaking. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against an any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye. And above all these things, put on charity, which is the bond of perfectness, and let the peace of God rule in your hearts.
Right?
To the which also ye are called in one body, and be ye thankful. I greatly desire that you shall heed the words of God.
Now they were appealing to Elder Uriah Smith and Spalding. They are appealing to this person is now demon possessed. And they are appealing for him to be Christ-like. And now he's saying, I greatly desire what?
That you shall heed the words of God. You put your
whole soul into whatever
you take hold of.
Right?
And if you think your brethren are
remiss
in their interest and duty, you afflict your soul. Your interest is identified with a grand and noble work, and you think that everyone who claims to believe the truth should feel as deeply as you and work in your lines. You feel that many err in not manifesting an interest in the things which you see are of such a great importance. There may be many who are deficient, but do not judge them.
Now go to 10 MR 49.1. We want to get it from the scripture, not from anyone, not from any private interpreter, from the scriptures, ours, our own scriptures. Now, say, where it says second, there was.
Second, there was talk of the possible Second, there was talk of the possible revision of books in which the old view was advocated.
Right?
Particularly the widely sold thoughts on Daniel and Revelation.
Now there were thoughts to take those books back and revise them. Why? To pull out all the private interpretations which were there. There was a talk to do that. Right? Right. Go to 1888 space 1140. Start from
Elder Smith.
Elder Smith, yeah?
Elder Elder Smith is not in the position in reference to the work and his connection with the cause of God that he ought to be in.
Right?
With the light he has had, Elder Butler and some others who have acted a prominent part in the cause have really been standing in the way of others and have retarded the work.
You see what they were doing now? They are not in a position to be used by God. And even Elder Butler, they are all now retarding the work of God. And what?
If Elder Smith was standing in the clear light, he would give the trumpet
a certain sound
in
right?
perfect harmony.
This was
with
not
the
a
angel
man
of-
in the right position to be used. Right? And
in
what?
perfect harmony with the angel of Revelation 18.
You see? That's why the angel of Revelation 18 message did not come even to us. Who was binding things about?
Yeah.
Who was binding things? These people, these men, Uriah Smith and Butler, and they are not in a way God should use their mind. This is what we have been reading there. Binding about and make sure everything is upside down. That's why we are walking near the coming of Christ with nothing in our heads. Nothing in our heads. Nothing really. Right? And
Who is to lighten the earth with his glory?
right.
Now is the time when we may look for just such a message as has been coming to us in 1888.
Now at the end is the time to be looking for that message of Revelation 18. How did we lose it out from 1888? Do we see what happened? Do we see what caused the fall? Do we see why God is so worried about Revelation 18 and bring a mighty angel to say, come out of here, come out of here? Why? God has been seeing what these men wrote. You know, A.T. Jones and Wagner, because of the rejection, these guys ended up useless. They ended up recanting and going to the beer hall. They were so disheartened. So if they went and say, oh, let it be, we're gone, these people will never listen to us. So who remained? Elder Uriah Smith and the whole gang, they remained. And who did we take over from? Who did we take over from? Because the very messengers they gave up, they lost hope. A.T. Jones and Wagner, they lost hope because of the behavior of Uriah Smith and Butler and Spalding and all those people were standing in the way of the message. They just lost hope and became heathen. They died out there. But who remained? Who remained? So, go to 1888, space 715.2. Right? There's it says to OA Olsen. So let's go to if Elder Smith.
If Elder Smith stood where God would have him,
Right?
if he had stood in the clear light from years, his influence would be a power for good.
Right.
But blindness
is upon him. Right?
and he senses it not.
Right? He was a blind writer of the books that we are now saying that's what God said for us. This is what he is being described as a blind man. And they say blindness has come to make us all blind. That's why he says in Revelation chapter 3 verse 2, so you are blind. Let's read it. Revelation chapter 3 verse 14. The charge to Laodicean. Who caused us to be blind? Right?
And unto the angel
Right.
of the church of Laodicea,
Right?
write these things,
Right.
say the Amen,
Right?
the faithful and true witness,
Right.
the beginning of the creation of God.
Right?
I know thy works,
I know thy works.
that thou art neither cold or hot.
You see what he had seen? What had God seen? These blind people. What has he said? Right? I know thy works.
I know thy works,
Right.
that thou art neither cold nor hot.
Right?
I would thou wert cold or hot.
Right?
So then, because thou art lukewarm,
Right?
and neither cold nor hot,
Right?
I will spew thee out of my mouth.
Right? And
Because because thou sayest,
Mhm.
I am rich.
You say I am rich. Now you go, you find people say, I've got enough books. I've got Daniel, Reveals the Future. I've got what, I got this one. You say you are rich. And what?
And increased with goods.
And increased with goods.
And have need of nothing.
And you say you have need of nothing.
And knoweth not that thou art wretched.
You are wretched.
And miserable.
Miserable.
And poor.
And poor.
And blind.
And blind.
And naked.
Do you see blindness? These blind ones now, they remained when A.T. Jones and Wagona went, and these blind ones, they remain now making sure all the things that they advocate this, advocate that, pull that off, and left us blind. And God had mentioned it through John, the Revelator, that we are going to be blind. Right? Let's go back to, if Elder Smith stood where God would have him, if he had stood in the clear light from years back, his influence would be a power for good. But blindness is upon him, and he senses it not. I have been shown that as he now stands, Satan has prepared his temptation to close about his soul. Now, the devil had a powerful agent there, an agent to make sure all these, we saw that when we listened to the video last night, it says, all this call of Babylon comes from 1844, we have been receiving errors until today. That's why the call is coming. Now started to bind about work. Who was binding about? Who? This group of workers. That group of workers binding about, they've made sure the messengers of God have left and they've gone out and become hidden. A.T. Jones and Wagon, they've become, and they remain now and say, okay, now we'll deal with it our way. And where did we inherit? We inherited from there. That's why we inherited. Unless we want to make amends, we have to make amends. If there are no amends, let's stay blind. It's fine. Let's stay blind, because God has promised that you are blind, and I'll spew thee. That's what He says. You are blind now. You are going to be spewed. And what? Mm-hmm.
If elders,
right.
But blindness is upon him, and he senses it not.
Right.
I have been shown.
Did you hear it said that in Revelation 3 verse 14? You are blind, but the worst thing is you know it's not. Now here it was Uriah Smith. He did not sense he was blind. And I've seen people who are so blind, but they don't sense how blind they are. This is what God was saying through Revelation chapter 3 verse 14. You are blind, but you don't know it. Wretched, poor, blind, and know it not. And it was a terminology to Uriah Smith from the spirit of prophecy here. He was blind, but did not know he is blind. Right? Mm-hmm.
I have been shown that as he now stands, Satan has prepared his temptations to close about his soul, that if he is not rescued, the banner of truth will not be held aloft.
Right. Unless we sat down and said, let's take off all his books out, all the things that he inspired out, then we are inheriting him in his condition. Right. Let's see what happens. 1140, 1888, space 1140. Elder Smith.
Elder Smith is not in the position in reference to the work and his connection with the cause of God that he ought to be in.
Now, I think we read that one.
Yeah.
We read that one. Yeah. Let's go to the next one. Go to Pastoral Ministry or manuscript released on 76.1901. Now we are after 1888. We are now in 1901, nearer to the death of Sister White in 1915. Let's hear the utterance there. Four special books.
Okay. 4 special books.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel and Revelation great controversy,
Mm-hmm.
patriarchs and prophets,
Mm-hmm.
and the desire of ages should
Mhm.
now go to the world.
Right. So that's what it was. Right? And let's go to at the end there. GC. Am I starting all over again where I was? I think I've lost my trend there. Let's go to which is the next one I gave you there?
It's testimonies. 5T.
Right.
The enemy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
5T.
Mm-hmm.
294.
Right.
The enemy
Mm-hmm.
says the spirit of prophecy
Right.
is preparing for his last campaign
Right.
against the church.
Mm-hmm.
He has so concealed himself from the view that many can hardly believe that he
We
exists.
saw him coming through Erasmus. Did we? If you cannot see the enemy there, coming through these two brothers who were binding about 80 Jones and Wagon, then it says now, the enemy says, the enemy is preparing for his last campaign against the church. He has so concealed himself from view that many can hardly believe that he exists. Why? They are pocketing all these books that were messed about. They hardly believe the enemy was in it. And what? Much less
can they be convinced of his amazing activity and power.
Mm-hmm.
They have to a great extent forgotten his past record.
Mm-hmm.
And when he makes another advanced move, they will not recognize him as their enemy,
Right?
that old serpent, but they will consider him a friend,
Right.
one
So-
who is doing a good work.
So what are we having now? When the enemy is making advanced movements, through that started with these two guys, we now think those who are saying they are wrong, they are the ones who are wrong. But instead, we are pocketing the enemy with us. And when he is making, we will never notice that the enemy is dealing, like it says in Revelation chapter 12, that the dragon put on water in his mouth and spat the water to the woman, so that the woman is taken up. Instead, God helped the woman to swallow all this water in the ground, so that the woman is saved. Now, you and I have got one duty to do, to study, to show thyself approved in these messages, to see it if it is to the law and to the testimony, to see whether what I believe is right in front of God, so that we please God, not to please people, but to please God. We need to please God, not men, and remain with the truth, for the truth only shall save us, shall make us safe, shall rescue us. May God bless you as we study and pry into the history. It's our duty to find, it's our right to find from this book, from these books which were left for us by the spirit of prophecy, for us to fortify and run for dear life. May God bless the Sabbath.